The voice cut through the cabin like a blade. "Get out. The seats for platinum guests only." 8 words. They weren't shouted. They weren't even loud. They were cool, sharp, and so dripping with entitlement that the quiet hum of first class seemed to freeze around them. Langston Reed had just stepped into row 2 of Silver Air Flight 417 when the words landed. The man was 6 feet tall, dark-skinned, broad-shouldered, dressed simply in a fitted black polo, dark jeans, and gray sneakers. No monogrammed suit, no Rolex on his wrist, no assistant trailing behind him. He carried only a slim black carry-on and a folded boarding pass. Seat 2A, his seat. But the young woman already lounging there didn't even glance up fully when she spoke. Alyssa Beck, blonde hair falling in waves over her designer scarf, legs crossed neatly at the ankle, Dior tote at her feet, her phone in one hand, a champagne flute in the other. She didn't say it like she was making a mistake. She said it like she was stating fact. Her voice practiced, routine. Passengers around them shifted in their wide leather seats. Some tilted their heads, pretending to adjust earbuds. Others are behind in-flight magazines that weren't yet open, but eyes darted. Everyone heard. Langston remained still. For a long beat, he didn't move, didn't react. He just looked at her, calm, steady, unhurried. Then he spoke, his voice even. "This is my seat." Alyssa scoffed, an audible, dismissive breath. Finally looking at him. "I seriously doubt that." She gestured lazily with her glass toward the boarding pass in his hand. "Coach is that way. Maybe row 20-something. The silence in the cabin shifted. Not quiet anymore. Tense. Waiting. Langston didn't argue. He simply unfolded the pass and held it out. Clear black letters. Seat 2A. His name. His ticket. But to Alyssa, that piece of paper meant nothing. Not compared to what she saw in front of her. Or rather, what she chose not to see. The senior flight attendant, Cassidy Reynolds, approached quickly. Blonde bun pulled tight. Navy uniform flawless. Corporate smile locked in place. She didn't look at Langston first. She angled herself toward Alyssa. "Apologies, ma'am," Cassidy said warmly. "Let's get this sorted out." Then she turned, her tone shifting, crisp now. "Sir, I'll need to verify your seat." Langston handed the pass over, without a word. Cassidy scanned it, frowned, then gave a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Must be an error in the system," she said, almost rehearsed. "Seat 2A is reserved for our platinum-level guests. I'll ask you to step aside while we sort this out." The way she said "step aside" carried more weight than the words themselves. A command disguised as courtesy. Alyssa leaned back in the seat, smirking like the matter was already settled. Behind Langston, a passenger in row 3 slowly lifted a phone, red light blinking as it began to record. A whisper followed. "Is this happening right now?" Langston didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He simply met Cassidy's eyes and said quietly, "It's scan green. It's my seat." Cassidy's smile stiffened. She angled her body slightly to shield Alyssa. "Sir, please. We don't want to delay departure." A murmur spread through the cabin. Most passengers stayed silent, but eyes burned into the scene. Alyssa crossed her arms, her voice loud enough for everyone nearby. "Try coach. You might actually belong there." Gasps rippled, small but unmistakable. Someone in row 1A shifted uncomfortably. A woman in 3B whispered, "Did she really just say that?" The cabin, once a quiet sanctuary of privilege, now buzzed like a live wire. The hum of air vents seemed louder. Even the clink of ice in glasses sounded like punctuation. Langston remained still, calm. His silence pressed against the noise like gravity. He glanced once, not at Alyssa, not at Cassidy, but at the small silver airline logo etched into the cabin wall beside the seat number. His eyes lingered there, unreadable. Then he looked back at Cassidy. "I'll sit," he said. His tone wasn't permission. It was declaration. Cassidy's smile faltered. She hesitated, glancing toward Alyssa, then back to Langston. But before she could speak again, a softer voice broke the tension. "I ran his ticket," said Mia Jensen, the trainee attendant standing near the galley. Her uniform was new, shoes still stiff, voice trembling. It scanned correctly. Cassidy turned sharply, her smile snapping into something colder. Crew trainees don't speak during escalations, she said through clenched teeth. Mia froze, color draining from her face. She stepped back, clutching her hands behind her. Langston turned his head slightly, enough to meet Mia's eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't thank her. He just gave a single, steady look, the kind that told her she wasn't wrong to speak. Alyssa scoffed again, flicking her blonde hair over her shoulder. Unbelievable, she muttered. He's wasting everyone's time. Langston finally moved. He set his carry-on down beneath the seat, folded his boarding pass neatly, and sat into the seat they'd tried to take. His movements were deliberate, calm. Cassidy's lips tightened. Sir, this isn't over. We'll need to resolve this. Then resolve it, Langston replied, voice even. Phones lifted higher now. Passengers leaned subtly, pretending to adjust jackets or fix seatbelts, but their eyes never left row 2. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was pressure, a pressure that spread through the cabin, filling every space between breaths. Langston leaned back slightly, folding his hands in his lap. His expression didn't change. But behind his calm exterior, something stirred. He wasn't angry. Not yet. But there was weight in his silence, the kind that made others uneasy. Alyssa shifted uncomfortably, though she tried to mask it with a smirk. Cassidy straightened, clipboard clutched like a shield. Mia stood frozen near the galley, her throat tight, wishing she had the courage to speak again. The passengers waited, phones recording, breaths held. No one knew who Langston Reed really was. No one knew that the man they had just tried to dismiss held more power over this airline than anyone on board. For now, all they saw was a man in a black polo and jeans, sitting in a seat the world told him he didn't belong in. And yet, the weight in the air made one thing undeniable. He wasn't moving. Not today. Not ever again. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to support the channel. The hum of the aircraft was steady, but inside the cabin, everything felt brittle, the kind of silence that creaks, ready to splinter. Langston sat in 2A, boarding pass tucked neatly into his pocket, hands folded calmly over his lap. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't moved since taking his seat, yet the air around him pulsed with unease. Alyssa Beck, still standing in the aisle, couldn't stand the sight. She leaned in, her perfume sharp, her words sharper. You're seriously going to just sit there? What part of platinum only don't you understand? Her voice was louder now, deliberate. She wanted others to hear. She wanted allies. Across the aisle in 2B, a middle-aged man in a navy blazer turned slightly, his jaw tightening, but he said nothing. In 3A, a Latina woman clutched her laptop bag tighter, her lips pressed in. In 3C, a teenage boy whispered to his mother, I'm recording. The red light on his phone camera blinked steadily, capturing everything. Cassidy, the senior flight attendant, reappeared with her clipboard, posture rigid, her corporate smile polished into place. Ma'am, we'll handle this, she told Alyssa with syrupy reassurance before turning to Langston again. Sir, you'll need to relocate. This seat is not assigned to you. Langston's reply was quiet, deliberate. It is, and I'm not moving. Gasps, soft and audible, rippled through first class. Cassidy's smile strained. Sir, this isn't about you. We're trying to keep the cabin calm. Langston tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering, then stopped disturbing it. The words weren't loud, but the weight of them pressed like iron. Alyssa gave a short, incredulous laugh, as though she couldn't believe his audacity. She glanced around at the cabin, searching for agreement. Do you all see this? He's holding us up. We're about to take off, and he's making a scene. But her words didn't land the way she wanted. A few passengers averted their eyes. Others shifted uncomfortably. No one applauded her. From the galley, Mia, the trainee attendant, lingered near the curtain. Her fingers twisted nervously against her skirt, but her eyes kept darting to Langston. She'd scanned that ticket. She'd seen the green light. She knew he was telling the truth. Her voice trembled, but she couldn't stop herself. It scanned valid. I saw it. Cassidy spun, her smile vanishing in an instant. Mia, enough. This isn't your responsibility. Mia flinched, stepping back. The reprimand stung, but her conscience gnawed harder. She stayed silent now, but her eyes brimmed with conflict. Langston's gaze shifted toward her, calm, steady. That single look, not demanding, not pleading, simply seeing her, was enough to steady her breath. Alyssa, emboldened by Cassidy's authority, crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. I fly this route every month. Everyone knows I sit here. Everyone. She tapped the seat's headrest with manicured nails, as if the leather itself recognized her. Langston finally looked at her fully. His voice was low, measured. You don't own the seat. You purchased access to it, just like I did. Alyssa scoffed, loud enough for row 3 to hear. You really think anyone believes that? From 3A, the Latina woman finally spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. I do. The words landed like a crack of thunder in the tense air. Every head turned. Alyssa whipped around. Eyes narrowed. Excuse me? The woman sat straighter, setting her laptop bag neatly at her feet. He showed his boarding pass. He sat down. He hasn't raised his voice once. You're the one escalating. Cassidy stepped quickly into the aisle, raising her hand as if to quiet a classroom. Ma'am, please. We'll resolve this without further passenger involvement. But it was too late. The spell of silence had been broken. From 1A, a businessman cleared his throat, folding his newspaper slowly. She's right. He's done nothing wrong. Why are we still talking about this? Murmurs spread. Phones lifted higher. A ripple of awareness passed through the cabin. This wasn't private matter anymore. It was public, witnessed, recorded. Alyssa's cheeks flushed. She tried to recover, tilting her head with faux pity. Look, I don't mean to be harsh, but sometimes people buy standby upgrades and get confused. It happens. He should just... Langston cut in not with volume, but precision. Stop pretending this is about confusion. His eyes locked with hers, steady and unflinching. You questioned me, not the ticket. Me? The words hung heavy, undeniable. A hush fell over the cabin. Even Cassidy faltered, her mouth opening, then closing again. The teenage boy in 3C typed furiously on his phone, whispering to his mother. He's someone. I'm telling you. Look. He turned his screen to show a headline. Langston Reed, CEO of North Point Capital. His mother's eyes widened. She glanced from the photo on the article to the man sitting silently in 2A. Recognition flickered. She whispered, "Oh my God." Langston didn't acknowledge it. He didn't need to. Alyssa, still clinging to control, leaned closer. Her voice dropped, but the malice sharpened. You can stop pretending now. Everyone knows you don't belong here. The recording phones captured it. The passengers heard it. And the silence that followed wasn't passive anymore. It was judgment. In the galley, Mia's chest tightened. She remembered a story from training. A black entrepreneur forced off a flight because her carry-on looked suspicious. No one had spoken up then. No one had intervened. The complaint vanished in paperwork. She looked at Langston, at the calm man, sitting where he was told not to. And this time, Mia knew she couldn't stay silent. Her voice cracked, but it carried. He belongs exactly where his ticket says. Cassidy spun again, anger flashing in her eyes. Mia! But the damage was done. The words had been spoken, and like a match in dry grass, they caught. Passengers shifted. Murmurs grew. Phones tilted higher. A collective awareness began to form. This wasn't just about one man in one seat. It was about something larger. Langston didn't smile. He didn't nod. He just breathed, slow and steady, as though the entire cabin had finally caught up to what he already knew. The tension wasn't just spreading anymore. It was turning. And in that turning, Alyssa Beck's grip on control began to slip. The aisle trembled with heavy steps before anyone saw them. 2 uniformed airline security officers appeared at the front of the cabin. Their expressions stern, their posture rehearsed for compliance. The murmurs hushed instantly. Phones tilted higher. catching the moment from every angle. Alyssa straightened in her seat, Victoria's smirk returning like a mask. She raised her hand, pointing at Langston with all the confidence of someone certain the system was hers to command. "That's him," she said. "He's refusing to move. He's disrupting the flight." Cassidy jumped in before the officers could respond, her voice pitched for authority. "Gentlemen, the passenger is occupying a platinum seat without proper clearance. We've asked him repeatedly to relocate, but he refuses. This flight cannot depart until he complies." The taller officer nodded once, already turning toward Langston. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with us. We'll sort this out off the aircraft." Langston didn't move. He sat exactly as he had been since boarding. Calm, steady, hands folded loosely over his lap. His gaze was fixed not on the officer, not on Alyssa, not even on Cassidy. He looked straight ahead, as if he were waiting for something only he could see. Then, finally, he spoke. "Verification is already underway. I suggest you wait 90 seconds. The officer frowned. "Excuse me?" Langston turned his head slowly, just enough to meet his eyes. His voice remained even, unhurried. "The system is checking itself. You want to let it finish." Confusion flickered across the man's face. The shorter officer shifted uncomfortably, glancing at his partner. Alyssa rolled her eyes, scoffing loud enough for half the cabin to hear. "Oh, please. He's bluffing. He's wasting everyone's time." Cassidy stiffened, seizing the moment. "Officers, remove him now. This is unacceptable." But before they could act, a new voice cut through the tension. He paid for that seat. Every head turned toward the sound. It came from 3A, the Latina woman who had spoken earlier. She was sitting upright now, her laptop stowed, her eyes blazing. "He hasn't raised his voice. He hasn't threatened anyone. He just sat down. Why is this a problem?" The officers hesitated. A murmur rolled through the cabin again. This time, the tide was different. From 1A, the businessman lowered his paper. "She's right. I've been watching." The man showed his boarding pass. "What else do you need?" Phones captured every word. Cassidy's voice cracked under the pressure. "This is between staff and the passenger. Please stay out of it." But the spell of silence had broken. From 3C, the teenage boy raised his phone higher. "I Googled him," he whispered to his mother, but the cabin carried sound differently now. His words spread. "He's Langston Reed. He owns part of this airline." Gasps rippled like a wave. Heads whipped toward Langston, then back to the glowing phone screen in row 3. The officers froze, eyes narrowing. Cassidy's jaw dropped slightly, but she recovered quickly, forcing a brittle laugh. "Anyone can say anything online. That doesn't prove." Langston finally moved. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into the seat pocket in front of him and pulled out a slim black tablet. With one swipe, a dark interface glowed to life, its header unmistakable. Delta V Connect Partner Ops. The cabin stilled. The glow reflected faintly off his calm face. Langston didn't look at Alyssa, didn't look at Cassidy. He angled the screen just enough for the officers to glimpse the display. A prompt blinked, ready to verify chain of command. He didn't press submit. Not yet. Instead, he looked at them and said, "I'll wait." The taller officer blinked. Confusion mingled with something else. Recognition. The silence that followed wasn't the same as before. It wasn't complicity. It was realization. Passengers leaned closer. Phones held steady. The hum of the engines felt like the backdrop to a trial. Alyssa's voice broke the moment. Shrill, defensive. "You're all being manipulated. He's just some guy who wants attention. He's probably staging this for a viral video." But the words didn't land. Not this time. Because as she spoke, a soft chime echoed overhead. The intercom clicked. A smooth, male voice filled the cabin. "This is your captain speaking. We are experiencing a brief delay while our ground team resolves a system verification. We appreciate your patience." Every face turned. The words hung like a verdict. System verification. Alyssa paled, her bravado cracking. What does that even mean?" she stammered. Langston finally turned his head toward her. His eyes were steady, his voice lower than before, but sharp enough to cut. "It means the system is catching up." Gasps scattered again. Cassidy looked rattled now, her clipboard trembling slightly in her hand. She turned to the officers. Desperate. "Please, remove him before this escalates further." But the shorter officer shook his head slowly. His earpiece buzzed faintly. He tapped it, then froze. His face paled. He turned to his partner, whispering, "Ops Control is watching this live." The taller officer's eyes widened. He looked at Langston again, then at the blinking screen in his hand. "Sir," he said carefully, "do you want us to proceed with escalation?" Langston didn't answer right away. He turned his gaze back to the cabin, letting the silence stretch. Passengers leaned in, breaths held, phones recording every flicker of expression. Then he spoke. "Not yet. Let the room decide what it just saw." The words landed like thunder, not shouted, not forced, but undeniable. The cabin was no longer just an airplane. It was a courtroom. Alyssa sat frozen in 2B, color draining from her cheeks. Cassidy clutched her clipboard like a lifeline, her authority slipping away with every second. The officers hesitated, caught between orders and oversight, and Langston Reed, still seated in 2A, calm and unshaken, had turned the tide without raising his voice. This was no longer about who belonged in a seat. It was about who truly owned the sky above them. The cabin seemed to tilt without moving. Not turbulence, truth. It rolled from the cockpit announcement down the aisle, through the polished hush of first class, rattling the seams of certainty. Alyssa Beck clutched the armrest of 2B like it was a ledge. "This is ridiculous," she said, but quieter now, the edges fraying. "He's gaming the system." Cassidy's smile had calcified. She stood stiff as an aisle placard, clipboard pressed to her ribs. "Officers," she said, voice brittle, "escort the passenger off. We have a schedule." The taller officer didn't step forward. His earpiece buzzed again. He listened, eyes thinning. Then, Ops Control confirms live monitoring. "We're to hold." Gasps, soft and real, trembled through the rows. Phones lifted higher, little red galaxies blinking awake. Someone whispered, "They're watching this from corporate." Langston remained in 2A, unmoved. He didn't brandish the tablet. He let it rest on his knee, screen dim, as if the thing doing the heavy lifting wasn't a device, but gravity itself. From the galley, Mia Jensen took a half step into the aisle, then stopped. The look Langston had given her earlier, steady, without demand, had lodged like a note that refuses to stop ringing. Her knuckles whitened on the curtain edge. She breathed in. Cassidy cut her off without looking. "Mia, clear the aisle." Mia swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." Alyssa found her voice again and made it sharp. "You're all being duped. This is a stunt. He probably printed some fake pass." A man in 1A folded his newspaper with surgical neatness. "Paper doesn't scan green," he said. A ripple of assent. The teenage boy in 3C turned his screen so his mother, and everyone behind her, could see the article. Langston Reed, North Point Capital, Airline Equity Stake. The headline glowed like a flare. Cassidy bristled. "Passengers, please refrain from—" She didn't finish. A new figure, taller than the officers and wearing a laminate badge like armor, strode in from the jet bridge. Derek Langford, base manager. He had the unblinking look of a man who spent his days putting out fires with gasoline. "All right," he said, with a clipped smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What's going on?" Cassidy's relief burst like steam. She stepped to him, whispering rapidly, framing the moment like a portrait she could live with. Unauthorized passenger in a premium seat, refusing to move, escalating the cabin, probable misuse of credentials. Derek nodded once, already turning to Langston. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to deplane while we verify. If you refuse, this escalates to federal." The word federal traveled like a cold finger along the armrest line. Langston didn't blink. "You just issued that threat in front of 16 recording passengers in a live compliance feed," he said, voice even. "You may want to wait 10 seconds." Derek opened his mouth, closed it as his phone buzzed. He glanced down. Whatever he saw there loosened his jaw. He blinked. Looked again. The PA clicked. A woman's voice, cool and administrative, not the captain's. This is corporate oversight. The incident in first class is now under live review. All crew are to hold position and await directive. Silence. Then the sound of 50 heartbeats, remembering they were human. Alyssa laughed too high. Corporate can't tell me where to sit. She'd lost the room and didn't know it. The phones were no longer curious. They were witnesses. Langston turned his head. Nothing in his face said triumph, only that the world had finally aligned with the facts. You could sit, he said, voice low, in the seat you paid for. A flush crept up Alyssa's neck. I paid for platinum. I earned this. She cut herself off, then didn't. The cruelty slipped free, like a blade. He looks like he belongs in the cargo bay, not next to me. The sound that went through the cabin was not a gasp. It was smaller, darker, the collective intake when something rotten is finally named aloud. Mia's breath hitched. The woman in 3A closed her eyes, as if steadying a hurricane behind her lids. The teenager didn't move his camera. Cassidy froze. Derek's mouth flattened. Langston shut his eyes for a single heartbeat, not in pain, but in confirmation. The old wound mapped perfectly by a new hand. When he opened them, they were very clear. He tapped the tablet once. A prompt slid into place. Passenger misconduct, bias/harassment, submit. He didn't press it. Not yet. He looked at Alyssa, not with anger, but with a quiet that made the aisle feel too narrow. You didn't question my ticket, he said softly. You questioned me. Alyssa's mouth parted, then closed, then opened again. I didn't mean. You meant enough to say it out loud, the woman in 3A said, voice steady. To all of us. The taller officer's earpiece buzzed. He raised his hand as if asking permission to breathe. Ops requests ID from passenger Beck. Immediate. Alyssa fumbled for her phone. Her platinum app pulsed on the lock screen like a heartbeat. Derek tried to reclaim the room. Let's calm down. We can't adjudicate bias claims in a cabin. Then stop creating them, the man in 1A said. The corporate voice returned, unhurried. Crew lead Cassidy Reynolds. Your device is now under review. Stand by. The clipboard dipped in Cassidy's hands. She looked at Langston, then at Mia, and found neither expression forgiving. Langston finally pressed submit. His screen changed, not loud, just definitive. Misconduct report filed. Witness streams mirrored. Review board. Live. The teenager whispered. He filed it. Alyssa's phone vibrated. She stared at the notification. Lines of text piled like bricks. Incident logged. Provisional travel hold. Pending review across partner airlines. Her head snapped up. You can't. It's already in motion, Langston said. Stop talking long enough to hear it. She looked to Derek, to Cassidy, to the officers. Anyone. No one reached for her. The crowd that had been furniture minutes, hours, lifetimes ago was now a wall. The captain stepped out of the cockpit. Silver hair, storm-weathered calm. He took in the tableau, the phones, the faces, then spoke not to Derek, not to Cassidy, but to Langston. Mr. Reed, he said, voice gentle with the authority of someone who carries metal for a living. Would you prefer to remain on this flight? A single inhale rolled the cabin. I would, Langston said. He didn't stand up. He didn't have to. The issue is mine. The captain nodded. Understood. He turned to Derek. Base manager, you will await corporate instruction off the aircraft. Derek flinched. Captain. Off, the captain repeated. Not louder, colder. Derek's phone buzzed. He looked. Whatever he saw drained the color from his face. He stepped back as if the floor had moved. Cassidy's device chimed next. The sound was very small and very cruel. She glanced down. Access suspended. Temporary. Ethics review initiated. Her breath snagged. Captain, Mia stepped forward. She didn't mean to. Her feet found courage before her mouth did. I scanned his ticket, she said, voice steadying as she used it. It was valid. I saw it. We all saw what happened after. Cassidy's composure fractured. Mia, not now. Langston looked at the trainee. Exactly now, he said Quiet approval, nothing theatrical, and somehow that made it larger. The corporate voice returned, precise. Acting lead, Mia Jensen. You are empowered for this cabin under temporary authority, pending dispatch reassignment. Mia's mouth fell open. She closed it fast, blinking tears back into duty. Yes, understood. Soft applause sparked to the edges of first class and moved inward. No cheering, just a practiced, grateful rhythm that said we saw. We're here. The applause died as quickly as it came, like a match you cup to keep lit. Alyssa's fingers trembled around her phone. You're going to blacklist me because I spoke the truth? Because I wanted my seat. You wanted my seat, Langston said very gently, as if the distinction were all the air left in the room. And you wanted me not to have it. She shook her head, the last of the entitlement slipping like a mask too big for the face. I'm platinum. You're recorded, the man in 1A said. The corporate voice chimed once more. Passenger Beck, provisional ban pending partner council review. All loyalty benefits suspended. Alyssa stared at the screen as if she could glare it back to green. Nothing changed. The teenage boy whispered to his mother, She's already banned. The captain exhaled through his nose, a sound like the last inch of storm moving off the wing. He looked at Langston. We'll depart shortly, Mr. Reed. Thank you for your patience. Langston gave a single nod. No flourish, no speech, only the measured answer of a man who decided long ago that he would not shout to be heard. He turned his face forward again, hands back on his knees, as if all of this, the corporate feed, the suspension, the ban, were just a system finally arriving where truth had been sitting all along. Behind him, the aisle held three shapes of silence at once. Derek's brittle, Cassidy's cracking, Alyssa's collapsing. Mia inhaled, found her new voice, and spoke into the interphone. Cabin secure in 2 minutes. She glanced once at Langston. He didn't look back, but the calm around him felt like a benediction. The plane had not moved an inch. And yet altitude had changed. Power, too. Outside, sunlight slid across the wing. Inside, the room that had pretended not to see now could not pretend at all. And for the first time since the 8 words had started, get out, the seats for platinum guests only, the cabin felt level. Justice wasn't loud. It had simply arrived and taken its seat. For a moment, no one breathed. The captain returned to the cockpit. The officers stood down, and the aisle cleared like a tide pulling back from shore. First class felt less like a cabin and more like a courtroom after the judges left. Rulings issued, fate set, silence heavy with what it all meant. Alyssa Beck stared at her phone, as if rage could hack it. Her Platinum app, once a crown, now flashed a simple, unnegotiable message. Travel benefits suspended. Review pending. Beneath it, another notification slid into place. Colder and more final. Provisional ban active, partner council review scheduled. The edges of her composure frayed, then frayed again, until there was nothing to smooth. Cassidy held herself too straight, the effort costing more than she had in reserve. Her device pulsed with the same administrative red. Access suspended, temporary, ethics review. The laminate on her badge caught the cabin light in a way that made it look hollow. At 2A, Langston Reed rested his hands lightly on his knees. He hadn't moved much since the first words cut the air. He didn't need to. Mia stepped 1 pace forward from the galley. Her new authority sat modestly on her shoulders, like a sash she hadn't expected to wear, but refused to drop. She drew a steady breath, lifted the interphone, and spoke, not confidently. That would come later. But clearly, cabin check commencing. Her voice traveled down the aisle with a kind of quiet rightness that felt stronger than pride. Passengers nodded, not at the order but at its source. The taller officer's earpiece chirped again. He glanced at Langston, then at Alyssa, then at Cassidy, and finally at Mia. Corporate confirms, he said, neutral as stone. We're standing by until pushback. Derek Langford, base manager, badge heavy, certainly gone, was already halfway down the jet bridge. Escorted by consequence, he couldn't outwalk. He didn't look back. The plane didn't miss him. A new chime came to Langston's tablet. He turned it just enough for no one and everyone to see. Incident status, Adjudicated provisional. Passenger, Alyssa Beck, ban, active across partner network, immediate. Crew, C, Reynolds suspension, immediate, pending review. Manager, D, Langford, administrative leave, effective now. Acting lead assigned M. Jensen, authorized. A sound moved through first class, something between an exhale and a prayer. The teenager in 3C lowered his phone and whispered, "It's done." His mother squeezed his knuckles once. The way mothers signal you saw right. Keep seeing. Alyssa stood abruptly, half-strangled words escaping. "You can't do this to me. I have status. I've flown more than anyone on this plane. I earned." Langston turned his head at last. There was nothing triumphal in his eyes, only the steady gravity of a man who had run out of time for pretending. "You didn't earn a person's place," he said quietly. "You tried to take it." She shook her head, grasping at air where influence used to be. "You set me up." "No." The woman in 3A answered for him. "You set yourself up. We just didn't look away this time." Alyssa's gaze ricocheted, hunting for an ally that wasn't there. For once, her phone, the device that had built her audience, refused to save her. Across the cabin, other phones waited with red lights steady, the crowd she hadn't invited capturing the moment she had made. Mia stepped closer, not cruel, just firm. "Ms. Beck, please take your assigned seat while we complete checks. Security will meet you at the gate on arrival." It wasn't a threat. It was an itinerary. Alyssa's lips trembled. She sat. For the first time since Get Out, she said nothing at all. Cassidy tried once, soft, depleted. "Mr. Reed, I was following policy." Langston's reply was surgical and kind at once. "Policy doesn't ask you to ignore proof. Culture does." Color left her cheeks in a single wave. She looked almost young, like someone who had memorized the rules and never learned the meaning underneath them. The captain's voice returned, calm with that old math certainty pilots carry. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are clear for departure. Flight attendants, prepare doors for pushback." Mia answered, voice steady, doors armed and cross-checked. The plane shuddered gently as the tug took hold. Outside the window, the morning light split on the gleaming engine cowls and ran down the fuselage like water finding its path. Inside, people adjusted belts, tucked bags, breathed. But no one returned to the world exactly as they had left it. Before the roll, Langston rose, not theatrical, not slow-motion heroic. Just a man standing to say the thing that had asked to be said for years. He turned to face the rows. Phones lifted again. He nodded once to the captain, once to Mia, once to the room that had become a reckoning. This wasn't about a seat, he said. He didn't need volume. He had audience. It was about who the world decides belongs in one. You saw that decision happen in real time. You saw the excuses. You saw the silence. You saw the line. He glanced at Alyssa, only briefly, only enough. And you saw what happens when someone crosses it. He looked past her, over her, into the cabin that was suddenly made of eyes that will remember. For some of us, this is not an incident. It's a pattern. 1,000 small humiliations that never make a report, because no one wants to be the problem on a plane. Today, the problem met the record. A murmur, no words, just agreement. To those who spoke, he continued, nodding to the woman in 3A, to the businessman in 1A, to the kid with the phone. "Thank you. You weren't loud. You were enough. That's what changes systems. Enough." He turned to Mia. The newness of her role hadn't had time to wrinkle. "You told the truth. Keep telling it." Mia swallowed. "Yes, sir." Langston faced the aisle, the window, the world. "If anyone else on this aircraft has experienced mistreatment on our network, today or before, my office will review your statement. We won't fix what we can't face. And we're done looking away." It wasn't a flourish. It was a policy. He sat. The tug released. The engines deepened into that lush, promising thunder. As the plane began its slow taxi, conversation returned in careful threads. Gentle, newly possible. The teenager leaned toward the window, eyes bright. The woman in 3A closed her eyes and exhaled something private and long overdue. The man in 1A unfolded his paper and didn't read a word. Alyssa stared forward, hands limp in her lap. For the first time, she felt not important, not ignored, seen. The unkindest mirror is a truthful one. Cassidy kept her posture, the habit refusing to die even as the badge at her waist blinked red. She would face her board. Maybe she'd learn. Maybe she wouldn't. But the decision no longer hid in dark rooms. It had been dragged into daylight and set down where people could step around it or over it or pick it up and carry it somewhere better. As the aircraft turned onto the active, Mia made one last walkthrough. Belts, latches, eyes. She stopped beside 2A. The way a person nods at a landmark they'll never pass without remembering. "Cabin secure," she told the interphone. "Thank you," came the captain's reply. They lined up. The engine swelled. The fuselage trembled with held intention. And then the runway unspooled fast beneath them, and gravity surrendered like an argument that had run out of words. Wheels tucked. City thinned. Clouds opened. Langston rested his head back. Not with relief. Not even with victory, just with the quiet rightness of a thing finally set true. His tablet went dark. His hands folded. He watched the slice of sky widen in the oval window and let it be what it was. Space no one could take. A last chime sounded in first class. Not corporate this time. Intercom. Mia's voice, steadier already. "On behalf of the crew and our executive partner on board, thank you for your patience. We're honored to serve you today." It was simple. It was new. Soft applause rose and faded, careful of altitude, respectful of the air. Alyssa turned her face toward the window. Her reflection stared back. No filters, no status bar. She didn't cry. Perhaps later. For now, the lesson sat beside her, quiet and immovable. Langston closed his eyes. Somewhere beneath the hum, he could hear the engine's deep vow. Onward. He didn't need to go viral. He was what happened after the video ended. The plane climbed, carving its path through light. The seat that had almost been taken held him without argument, without ceremony, without asking for proof. It was a seat again, no more, no less. Sometimes justice is a gavel. Sometimes it's a green light on a screen. And sometimes it is simply this: a man sitting where he belongs while the world, at last, learns to follow. If you like this story, please subscribe to support this channel.